Hey guys, it's Damo. I just wanted to give a quick video about a problem that I had as a trumpet player that I have kind of come up with a couple of strategies to defeat, and it's something that might not pertain to you, but maybe one of your students might have it, or at some point you may develop it, especially if you're one of those people that is a weekend warrior playing trumpet or French horn or something like that, or you've taken some time off the instrument and are getting back into it. And that is a double buzz. And it's something that can be really difficult for a trumpet player to deal with. I had one pretty consistently for about a year and a half, 2 years, and I still struggle with it sometimes when I forget some basic things that I'm going to explain to you. But I wanted to share it with you now because I've pretty much gotten through this, thank God. Um, but I notice it in softer settings if I'm not paying attention to my muscles and what I'm doing. And I also notice it when I'm fatigued, which is actually one of the things we'll talk about, how to deal with that. So here's the thing. What is a double buzz? It's exactly what it sounds like. In the aperture, which is the part that you have inside of your mouthpiece. Okay, you got your embouchure, which is everything, and your aperture, everything in here. You get this sort of thing. You kind of hear that kind of sound. And it manifests most prominently when you're playing softly, when the muscles are not quite used to dealing with everything, and also when you're playing higher where the sound gets pinched or whatnot. The thing is it's difficult to diagnose at first, not because of the fact that we can't hear it, but it's hard to tell what a student is actually doing. And I know for me personally, through reading books and even asking people about it, they would say, well, play long tones or get a mouthpiece that helps with compression rather than hitting the root cause. So I want to talk about the root cause for double buzzes. I've experienced it. There might be other causes, and if there are, please mention in the comments. I'd actually love to get to this and find something that the average trumpet player could look at and be like, wow, it's not just me. There are other people who have experienced this, and this is how to get through it. So let me first talk about this concept. We talked about what the double buzz was. How does it manifest? Well, there's two primary things I noticed that contributed to a double buzz. Three, if you just think about airflow. If you're not driving air through the instrument, of course, that's going to contribute to things. Okay, if you don't have enough muscles to deal with these notes to begin with, that could be a thing too. But here's the two primary ones. The first primary one is this. I want you to look at what my embouchure is now versus the embouchure that I was utilizing before, and see if you could see the difference on the visualizer. Okay, that's the one I'm on now. And on, I'm not getting much resistance here, so it's not going to buzz the same way as a mouthpiece or a horn. Okay, sounds pretty good. Now watch what I was doing before and see if you can tell the difference. This versus this. The answer should be pretty obvious. If it's not, I'll give it to you. My aperture from the get-go was open. Now, when you have a trumpet mouthpiece on or whatnot, and you pick the horn up and you start playing, right? There's a certain amount of mouthpiece pressure that has to exist. Now, there are varying schools of thought of this, and I've read about all of them, but the ones, for instance, that say there's no mouthpiece pressure. Okay, great. I'll show you what no mouthpiece pressure looks like. It's kind of obvious, obviously. We need to have something. Too little. Same principle. probably ideal. I'm not going to do too much more than that. Too much mouthpiece pressure obviously doesn't do us any good. And none of that actually really has any bearing on the double buzz, except for the fact that if we don't have enough mouthpiece pressure, we're going to get air coming out of the side. We're going to get a poor sound. We're not going to get enough vibrancy of the lip. But here's the deal. Once we do have a grip, once we have just enough, there is going to come a point in time when, as we're going higher, we're going to use a little bit more mouthpiece pressure. Everybody does it. It's just natural, because our muscles can only be so strong. The stronger our muscles are in our embouchure, the less mouthpiece pressure we have to rely on in order to get through a night or through a gig or something. But we're still going to need some of it just to create that seal, so there's no leakage of air or whatnot. And also, when we just need that little boost, like, we're trying real hard, we've been playing a hard gig, we got to keep everything together. Well, that's what mouthpiece pressure does. We do it intuitively to keep everything in place. The thing is, if your aperture is too open to begin with, and you add just a little bit of mouthpiece pressure, it can also stop the aperture from compressing properly to get the motion you need. So rather, what we really need to do is kind of start the aperture closer together, have more of the lip in the mouthpiece, so to speak, and let the muscles do the work. Okay? The tone quality will be better. Let me repeat that. The tone quality will be better because we have more lip in there. We have more surface to vibrate on. But here's the other insidious problem. So if the aperture is one of the things, and that's not the issue, let's say your aperture is just fine, but why are you still getting a double buzz? Well, the other issue that I have found actually comes in with the realization that all of these muscles can be kind of worked on independently. I'd like you to do something for me. I want you to say, ooh, but I really want you to focus on these orbital muscles around here. Say, ooh, ooh, right? Now, nobody's trumpet embouchure is like that. But then again, we have people that do this. When they play, the higher they go, the more they stretch the lips out. And that has its own host of challenges and difficulties that one can go through. But if we focus on these corner muscles, right, and in turn also the chop muscles going down here, these muscles down here, you could feel them if you really engage these. This embouchure right here that I'm holding, these muscles here, I'm actually not engaging these muscles at all. Blah, 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 blah. I'm talking through them, but I'm able to hold here. In order to play trumpet well, or to have a proper embouchure, we need to engage both. We need to have these ooh muscles, but also balanced with these muscles here. The thing is that if I'm just playing, not even thinking about it, and I were to go on to poke there, on my face at least, and I'm sure if anybody's been playing for a decent amount of time, it can give the impression that you're actually engaging these muscles. But that's actually not the case. At least for me. It might be for you, it might not. You got to think about this for a second. But there's a significant difference between this and this. This is engaged. This is utilized. And I'm pushing inward to create this pocket, this soft region, this vibrant region on my face. And if I forget to do that, either by habit or, because, maybe this is natural for some people who don't even realize they're doing it, but for me personally, it's something I have to personally think about. Really engaging these muscles as opposed to just passively letting them do their thing. It makes the difference. because it allows these muscles here to work less. If you don't engage these muscles have to compensate. And these muscles here are drastically weaker than these muscles. If I had to put a power scale, I'd say probably 60 to 70% of your endurance and your power is probably over here in these muscles here. The other 30, 35% whatnot is over here. And when you factor all that in, it's no wonder that being fatigued, getting tired on a gig, could also contribute to a double buzz. So in short, if you're having a problem with that particular aspect of your playing, where you're feeling this or whatnot, there's a couple of things to factor in. Number one, these muscles and these muscles can be engaged separately, but they have to be engaged concurrently when you're playing. So I can start here and then think about these muscles, and that creates my embouchure, and that's just fine. Ideally, all together now, and set my embouchure up, everything's golden. The second thing is to make sure that I don't start too open. Be very aware of the physical sensation of what's going on in your face. And you will find that this problem alleviates a lot of itself. Now, how can you practice this? What are some exercises you can do to make it so that this becomes less of a problem? Well, the first thing, of course, is basic long tones. Okay, why I suggest long tones is because long tones are useful for a number of things. Obviously, you hold the note out, an isometric hold, but it's also because it allows you to really listen to the center of the pitch and the tone. If it doesn't sound good, if you're hearing problems on a long tone, you can rest assured that you're going to hear them when you're playing more flowing ideas. So first start out with simple long tones. I like to just take a note, hold it for as long as I can. But as I'm holding it, it's a very active exercise. Sometimes we think of long tones for trumpet players as just being this long thing and we just kind of go into another space. No. Long tones should be fascinating. And they should be fascinating because you're listening to a pitch. You're listening to the center of that pitch. You're listening to the waverings. How can I keep it here? Centered the whole time. There's going to be a little bit of this. There's going to be a little bit of this. How can I keep it here? And hold that isometric ice, like ice, solid. How can I hold that pitch there? If you're using these muscles and you've got your aperture in place properly, you'll hear some roundness of tone. You'll hear some wavering. And where's that wavering coming from? It's coming from these muscles working, trying to learn their balance point. But once they've gotten a good, steady ground, so to speak, you'll find that there's less wavering. From there, I would do some sort of flow study, maybe the Chickowitz flow studies, or something that you make yourself, like a guide tone exercise over some jazz chords or something like that. Something small, maybe 4 measures to 8 measures in length, like something like that. And your goal is to try and get all those muscles working and to just think about your air flowing through the line. Those would be 2 excellent exercises. The last thing I would do, just to get the foundation, is to work on your first attack. And that's a whole other thing that we could talk about. But in short, I would think about getting a feel for what it feels like on my face to have that sort of aperture and embouchure, getting all the muscles to feel where they need to be, and then just working on getting that initial first attack. And with the first attack, I will say this. First attack is actually really simple. You get everything in its place before you attack your note. The tendency for folks, especially kids, they try to do everything at the same time. It's a meeting of everything at the same time. Like a Big Bang Theory, like everything goes. It's the opposite. First attack is you have everything in its place, and then from there, the attack sprouts. Everything in its place. And then everything goes. If you're hearing a little air pocket or something, while that doesn't necessarily contribute to your double buzz issue, for instance, it makes it harder. One can improve on an inefficient setup, but it would be really better if we just make sure that everything is in place first, get everything right, and then from there, develop. So I know that this was actually a little longer than I anticipated, a little bit over 15 minutes, but I think that this is such a problem that I see on forums and things like that, and I know that for me as a professional trumpet player, it's a problem that actually affected my psyche, made me feel worse about my playing, affected my ego, like all these little things about how I felt about myself as a player. And I realized that, the sound is the thing. If the sound isn't as beautiful as we conceive and we can't figure out what it is, nobody seems to have an answer for us, friends, family, books, whatever it is, you're sitting there searching for all this information, it can get really disheartening. So I hope that somebody on the internet, somewhere in the world or whatnot, sees this, and maybe it's an answer for them or gives them some sort of onus to improve. I hope it helps.